Hey everybody, welcome again to Excited About the Gospel. I'm Jason Harwood, and excited today we have an interview podcast with Lee Van Dam. Lee, thank you for being on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Lee is an author, has been in real estate, and for his professional career, also traveled all over. We'll talk a bit about that in church service, from the Netherlands to Hong Kong twice, and has many books. If you like Hong Kong, if you like golf, or if you want to read fascinating historical context on the sacrament, you have books on all that. Plus going on cruises, a book on going on cruises. Lee, you've done it all.
We tried.
Yeah, and currently writing a book, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Almost ready to print it.
All right. So we will put a link in the podcast description where you can go and find some of Lee's books. I came across some of your writings and became familiar with you from your book about the sacrament. Fascinating look at sort of the history of the sacrament. Can you just give us maybe just a brief insight, something particular that you learned about the sacrament that was maybe most people don't realize when you look historically at the sacrament?
Yeah. Even as a young man, I started realizing that what we were doing in our sacrament meetings wasn't quite the same as what they did back in the early days of the church. So I became interested in that, and I started researching and tracing some of the evolution of the sacrament to what we have today. And it was fascinating. There are many changes, many of them very significant, to make sure that today we have the very reverent, wonderful sacrament service that we all experience every Sunday.
What was different from what you learned, what you saw then, to what we have now?
Well, let's think for a minute. Okay, first of all, sacrament meeting was not always held every week in the early days. Okay, in fact, the first sacrament meeting was when the church was organized, right? April 6th, 1830, in the Whitmer cabin. That was a Tuesday. Okay, so that was Sunday. And eventually the church got into the practice of having it on Sundays, but we didn't have meeting houses built just exactly for that. So it was held in homes and schools and whatever be available. So the frequency of it's interesting. Also, in the early days, young men were not very involved in it. It is the older men. They were the deacons and the teachers and priests. And there was some feeling that it was so special that the younger people really couldn't handle it right. So it took quite a few years, but eventually the church adopted a pattern of ordaining young men at certain ages and specifically getting them involved in sacrament. Another big change. For many, many years, we drank from a common cup. Okay.
That would not work today.
It worked today. In fact, it came about, the change to individual cups came because of some members who were concerned about it, who approached the leaders of the church with some ideas about that. This was during the time when science and medicine was just starting to catch on to what germs did to us and how they spread. And there was some resistance to giving up the cup because that's how it was done with Christ, so we should follow the pattern. And also the feeling that we bless the water and the bread, that should remove any impurities and germs. And so it stayed for a long, long time. In fact, the very first time that the sacrament was administered with individual cups was in 1911. It took that long before the cup went away. And then that that took a little bit of work from a ward in the Salt Lake 18th Ward. There was a Brother Clausen, and in one of their Sunday school classes, he brought up his concern about drinking from the common cup. And he found that the entire classroom felt the same way. So Brother Clausen went to the bishop and the stake president with a suggestion on how to do it with individual cups. And the stake president said, I'm sorry, I don't have the power, the authority to make that change, but you're welcome to go talk to the brethren about it. So a meeting was arranged with the president of the church, and they met with him and suggested their idea, and he liked it. So he said, this is a pretty monumental change. I'll go visit with the Quorum of the 12 about it. And they all agreed on the thing and gave the 18th Ward permission to use individual cups on a condition. They said, you're welcome to do that, but you have to pay for it yourself.
Oh,
Because see, there's some cost involved in that.
yeah.
We had individual cups, and we had trays that could accommodate individual cups. So it wasn't until the following year in the Salt Lake 18th Ward, the very first time individual cups were used. And since then, it's been a big hit.
Yeah. Worldwide now we use individual cups. You've been all over, right? The Netherlands and Hong Kong, individual cups everywhere.
Yeah, and members may not understand that the church now furnishes those cups. It got to be such so many cups and such a big thing that the church actually purchased a great big huge piece of equipment to manufacture these plastic cups that we use. That piece of equipment is here in Salt Lake City at the church's printing center over on the west side. And it's a fascinating machine to look at. A big sheet of food grade plastic, big white sheet goes in one end. It stamps and all this stuff, and out come the sacrament cups. So the church furnishes them. You order them from church headquarters.
Yeah.
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 That's how we do it now.
It's interesting to think kind of the crossover between just custom, this is the way we've always done it, versus, this is hard, fast doctrine. Even something as simple as taking the sacrament out of a single cup versus multiple cups. Yeah.
Another interesting change is that sacrament meeting used to be quite a production. And when my dad was a young child, he remembers in his ward that it was kind of like a procedure with even red curtains and some music. Sometimes not just organ music, but local members would play their violins or whatever and kind of herald the coming of the sacrament to everybody. And so that went on for a while, and then the brethren issued a policy saying that the very best condition for the sacrament is absolute quiet. Now that's what we have. I remember as a young boy, even during the passing of the sacrament, the organ would be played. Now we don't do that.
Yeah. Huh. And yeah, how far would we go? How far would individual wards go, individual branches or stakes if there wasn't sort of this directive? Yeah.
Yeah. And see, the church handbook that we all love dearly, the very first church handbook, if I remember right, didn't come out until 1898 or 1899. So the church had been in existence almost 70 years, and there was no official handbook. The instructions came by way of letters and missives and talks and whatever. And the church finally decided that we needed to kind of coordinate all this. And interestingly, the very first handbook said nothing about something like the sacrament or sacrament meetings. It talked about bishops and how they handle tithing in kind. Like, what does a bishop do if a member gives them a live pig for the sacrament or for their tithing?
Yeah.
Their instructions about that. Bit by bit, the little tiny handbook gets bigger and bigger and bigger until we have it even online today.
Yeah. With AI search, you can now search using AI of the handbook, and it will bring up.
And an interesting change is that in the good old days, it was only available to leaders. It's kind of a book that wasn't available to regular members. Now it's not only available to all members, but to everybody. You can be living in Mongolia and go on the internet and look at the handbook. Interesting, I think. That's changed.
You've also written a book about golf. Are there any spiritual lessons you learned from golfing, Lee?
Golf is very spiritual.
Other than just praying, constant prayer.
Yeah, golf again was fascinating. I don't play golf very well, but it's a book more about the stories of golf and all.
Yeah.
Like for instance, somebody did a study and they figured that at any given moment in time, a golf ball is in the air somewhere in the world. Okay, now try to prove that wrong. That's just there's a lot of golf going on. You know, when we're asleep, people on the other side of the world are playing. And,
Yeah. Especially with the kind of spread of, things like Top Golf and things.
right. Yeah.
I mean, the ball doesn't get up in the air, but mini golf, every once in a while, ball get up off the ground in mini golf.
We had an interesting experience. Having served in Hong Kong, we hosted a family from Hong Kong 2 weeks ago. They stayed in our home and slept overnight. And before it was time to go to the airport, we had a little bit of time on our hands. So I took them to the local golf driving range. They'd never done that before. We got a bucket of balls. We all hit balls for a little while, and they really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Now now they're bitten with the golf bug, I think. And then after that, we did another interesting thing. The car was a little bit dirty, so we went through the local car wash, an automatic car wash. They've never done that before. Their cameras and they're taking pictures as we're going through the car wash.
They don't have car washes in Hong Kong, huh?
Well, they have lots of cars, but it's a crowded place. I'm sure there must be some, but they had never experienced it.
Yeah. Not going to use up real estate for a car wash the way we do here.
What they have is they have servants. So you have your gardener or your chauffeur, and every day he washes your car, but it's not an automatic car wash.
Yeah. Well, maybe a business opportunity for automatic car wash. If you could get any real estate in Hong Kong, I'm sure impossible.
See, the real estate in Hong Kong is really tricky. You may know that the temple where it sits is where the old mission office used to be, Mission Home. And President Hinckley asked for the local leaders to find parcels that could be used. And after all those were proposed to him, he was in Hong Kong and he visited those. He said, no, let's tear down the existing buildings and let's build the temple right where it is. And let's go up. So the Hong Kong temple is temple with the top floors are the temple and the bottom floors are meeting house and
yeah. So one thing that we try to focus on is finding purpose and value in life. As you have done many things, both personally and professionally, as you get to the stage of life that you are now, what do you see as the purpose of your life?
Well, I'm at the stage, retired now, and we have a family and grandkids and great grandkids, and that's what I enjoy the most. It sounds trite in the church, but it's all about love and families and eternity being together. So those are the things we try to do. And I'm lucky to have my wife Holly, who just is the world's greatest grandmother and great grandmother. We just had great grandkids not too long ago, and they are identical twin girls. So our first great grandkids are the cutest little identical twins. And I can't tell them apart. They're just totally identical.
Can your wife tell them apart?
No. Well, I should be fair to her. Yes, she says she can. But
yeah, and half the time she's right.
Half the time she's right.
Yeah. So you said something interesting. When I asked about purpose, you said that spending time with your family is the thing you enjoy most. Is that how you have come to define your purpose? Is what you love to do the most?
Well, yeah, I know that's the most meaningful thing, and that's the correct answer to give you. But I still like golf. So I still like to, you can't spend 100% of your time with your family. And so it's nice that when you can spend meaningful time.
Mm,
And, and Holly's been really good about doing that. We love to gather, love to get together.
yeah.
We really like each other, and there are no large issues in the family where we argue with each other. We just don't get together.
Yeah. So before you were retired, how did you balance some of the multiple demands as far as purpose went of family, church service, work, hobbies? How did you find a good way to balance that out?
It's always been a challenge and still is a challenge. It's probably a bigger challenge now than even in the past. But as soon as you get involved in church callings and your career and your hobbies, it's not easy. So you have to decide how to handle that. And you have to give up some things sometimes. I like to run when I was younger. I like to do races.
Mm,
I found that the race itself wasn't the problem. It was the training for it. Okay? If you want to run a marathon, you got to put the miles in. And so it didn't feel good to me to come home from work and all of a sudden leave for 2 hours and go running and ignore my kids.
yeah.
So I did it a little bit, kind of worked it in. But I found out in the long run that I just couldn't keep everything going right if I spent too much time doing it. Some people can do it. I couldn't.
Yeah. My wife, one year for my birthday, people think of this as a strange birthday present, but for my birthday, she bought me a race registration for a half marathon. And I said, no, the present wasn't the registration fee for the half marathon. The present was that she bought the race registration as kind of permission to say, you've got permission between now and the time of the race to dedicate the time necessary to get yourself in a position to go run a half marathon.
Yeah. And I think you're exactly right. That was a great way to say it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
So my wife once gave me a present for Christmas, dance lessons. Is that the same thing? She gave me permission to take dance lessons.
Did you like dance? Was this more her wanting like ballroom dance with you?
No, well, here's what happened. So in our neighborhood, in our ward, there were half a dozen wives who decided they wanted to get together with their husbands and learn how to dance. So we all at the same time received dance lessons for Christmas. So the thing that was fun about it is we did it as a group.
Yeah.
Go out to dinner before or after, and then we go to dance lessons. But no, I didn't like dance lessons. We joke about how that's probably the worst Christmas present I ever got. But
And you've had some church callings that have required full-time demands, right? In Hong Kong, you served a mission in Hong Kong as a youth, but then went back, and that was more full-time church service. I think a lot of people romanticize the concept of like, oh, I would love to. I don't know that people want to be a mission president, but the concept that you could just set everything aside and go full-time dedicated service to the Lord. And yet nobody has control over when a call like that comes. I'm sure you weren't looking for it. But how do you work if you're trying to give more time to God? How do you work that in if your calling is maybe like being a Sunday school teacher?
yeah, and the beauty of a calling like that is you do it with your wife. So it's a great calling when you can serve side by side with your wife.
Because you were mission president back in Hong Kong, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
And you're right. You don't ask for it. You get a call from a secretary who says, "Can you please come in and visit?" And you go in, and the first visit was not issuing the call; it was more exploratory. What if you were asked to leave for 3 years?
Hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically speaking, by the way, how's your Cantonese? Do you still speak Chinese? So it's the handwriting on the wall, but the first visit was not to issue the call. So immediately you think back, okay, I've made a commitment. I have covenants to do what I'm asked to do. So the answer is, it may not be the easiest thing in the world. It may interfere with my career. We're going to miss our family, but that is what we do. And it turns out to be wonderful. Every instance of church service is proven to be wonderful.
Yeah. Um, so I sometimes struggle with that because, I mean, I'm not called to be a mission president, but I'd like to give more time to God. When you haven't been serving full time, how have you found opportunities to feel satisfied with your level of contribution to God outside of being called to do it full time?
Question. I live in the Wasatch Front. We're surrounded by members of the church, but I enjoy maybe not having so many members around because I enjoy learning from them and associating with them. I have a friend, a neighbor. We go to lunch with each other once a month or more often.
Mm.
Not like the church. Does not want to be converted. He's a great guy. So we go to lunch, and I like doing that. And it's not because I went to state conference and they said you should go be nicer to your neighbors. It's because I really like the guy.
Yeah.
It's what we ought to do.
You're not assigned to minister to him.
No, he's not. And he said an interesting thing, and I don't know how to take this, but he mentioned a friend once. He said, I like going to lunch with Lee because he's the only Latter-day Saint that doesn't try to convert me. Okay? But he doesn't know that in the process of going to lunch with him, we talk about the church all the time.
Yeah.
Learning about the church. Yeah.
But authentically, not a high pressure, you're trying to convert him, just be friends.
He's quite curious about what we do.
Yeah.
It leaves the door open to always telling him what I said last Sunday, let me tell you about the lesson we had. And we talk about things like that. And I took him to a temple open house.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. People are quite curious about it. And they're a little afraid of us. And so you gotta get with them a little bit.
Yeah. And even in Utah, there's the opportunity to have temple open houses. What was the most recent one? Saratoga Springs, I think.
Yeah.
My family and I got to go through that one. Very interesting.
Yeah. You and I went to the Taylorsville open house.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
You picture, Jason, what's going to happen in 2027 with the Salt Lake Temple open house?
Oh my gosh.
The whole world's going to want to come. If I were a non-member living in England, and I heard that the great Salt Lake Temple for the first time in many, 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 many years, is going to invite me to walk through it, I'd sign up for that real fast.
Yeah. And maybe sort of the next phase is how you pass on these lessons as you have kids now and grandkids. And I mean, you have great grandkids, so you have grandkids old enough to be having kids. What are lessons that you've learned that you pass on to them, or the conversations that you have for them around, that's such a powerful time in your life when you're an adult in your 20s and trying to figure out what your life is all about. Yeah. What have you learned from your life and from being a mission president that you might pass on to them?
You don't like to be preached to too much, so you do it kind of sideways. One of the things we like to do when they come over for Thanksgiving dinner and all that, they love having Grandpa and Grandma do some show and tell. They love us getting out our old stuff. And in the process of showing them your missionary name tag or something, you can teach about missions and stuff. So those are the opportunities. So we really look forward to that. They love pictures of us, and they love hearing stories of the goofy things we've done. And then we always are talking about the church. They know exactly where our heart is.
Mm-hmm.
So we do a lot of that. But being grandparents is great because It's not like a parent. We don't have to discipline. We just have to love them.
Yeah. I'm going through it for the first time. It's kind of interesting. My oldest son just got married, and so now he's sort of on his own. And I had a conversation with him the other day about education. He hasn't yet finished his, bachelor's degree. And I said, hey, where are you at on this? I'm not 100% certain, what we're going to do. And I'm sitting there thinking, I think you got to finish up your education. But it is interesting how much you can press on that.
One of the things I have to keep reminding myself about, and I notice it all the time, is things are different when I was his age.
Yeah.
For me, it was very natural to come home from mission, finish my schooling, get married, buy a house, and all that stuff. It's kind of topsy-turvy right now. And so I have to remember that and counsel it. We have a son-in-law who's a bishop in a young single adult board at BYU.
Oh, geez.
I just, wow, how do you keep up with that? What do you teach them and how do you do it?
Yeah. I think there's three callings I never want. Well, bishop never want, but specifically bishop of a young single adult ward. And then mission president and patriarch. Those have got to be the worst.
Don't say that because look what's is going to come down the road for you.
Well, now I know if I ever get called to Salt Lake and have a conversation, what would happen if you were to have to leave for 3 years? Just cataclysmic consequences, whoever it is asking me.
Holly has a degree in elementary education, and she was teaching second and third grade when we got engaged and married. And she loves teaching little kids. She is so good at it. So doggone it, the bishop the other day called her to be the gospel doctrine teacher. That just scares her.
Yeah.
You have to teach doctrine instead of little cute little songs about your ears and your nose and stuff.
I would bet that most people in that gospel doctrine class would love some music time. Some primary level music time would probably be well received in a gospel doctrine class.
Holly and I were asked one time to be the teachers of the Sunbeam class. Okay.
Oh, the best.
One of my favorite callings. I mean, like one day, the lesson topic was animals. So we took them all outdoors with some little shovels, and we went out in the garden of the meeting house and we started digging for worms and ants. Can it get better than that?
Yeah, especially when there was 3-hour church, Sunbeam teacher was less desirable. Now you can get through an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. With a little digging. How close is your life now to what you thought it was going to be when you were in your 20s and 30s?
That's a really interesting question. I grew up in a household that was solid in the church. Dad served as a mission president when I was a young boy. I pictured, not a particularly mission president, I pictured just kind of doing what my mom and dad did. And we've been lucky to kind of do that. Plus more things. We're doing things that weren't available to them. And so things are thankfully quite on course. It's surprising, not exactly what we intended, but it's things that feel good to us. We're pretty grateful.
Was there a point where that shifted, where that changed and things became quite a bit different than what you were expecting?
Well, the call to go back to Hong Kong and serve as mission president really derails some things. I had my own business at that time. And anytime you leave for 3 years, have your own business, and you pretty well just put it on the shelf and just have faith that it's going to be okay when you come home. And it was. It was. But I'm not sure I earned quite as much money as I might have, but it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, because you were 5, your dad gets called to be mission president in the Netherlands, correct?
And that was a great thing. So I have three siblings. So there are four of us plus mom and dad. We get on a ship and we sail to Holland. And we get there. The mission home was in The Hague. And the day after getting there, my mom grabs me. We walk down the street to the local Dutch school. She shoved me through the door, the kindergarten door, and for the next 5 years, I was in the Dutch school, and it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first little girlfriend was Dutch.
Well, it'd have to be. It'd have to be.
Oh,
Yeah, that's the age. 5 years old, you start looking. Because Van Dam, very Dutch name, right? When you think of Amsterdam, that's yeah.
yeah. So I was kind of the black sheep in the family when it comes to that. So dad, grandpa, dad, my older brother all go to Holland on missions. Dad goes as a mission president. So I just assumed when I put my papers in as a young man that that would be my lot. I spoke Dutch. They send me to Hong Kong. Learn Chinese. Now go figure.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I see that happening so much now today in mission calls. It's not so much about what your ancestry is. It's about missions and who they need and how do you staff missions. So, you know, our granddaughter tomorrow goes in an MTC on her way to Armenia. So, you know, that's what happens.
Yeah. So you've had what by all measures would be remarkable success within the church, mission president and many markers, external markers that, hey, you're doing well within the church. You've had run your own business, been successful, written books, and done many personal development things. How do you define success for yourself? What are some of the personal markers you look for to say, I'm being successful?
Mm. Yeah. Again, I know the right answers for that, but you got to feel those answers. But I learned a long time ago that if it's all about money, you got a problem. Not the way to do it. And same thing like back when I was dating. I found the most wonderful woman, and she found me, I guess, and we just have had this great relationship. We really do like each other. But I'm aware that doesn't always happen in marriages. And so marriages sometimes don't work. So we've been really lucky that way. But I think it's partially because we're centered on things that are important rather than how we look, where we vacation, how much money we have in the bank. I mean, we're comfortable. I'm glad we're able to do that. But I know so many people are so upside down when it comes to what really means life. You know? Yeah, you gotta be careful because you get trapped into other things, and even your career can trap you if you're not careful. So,
Yeah. And maybe through experiences that you've had, I think sometimes people feel as if, gosh, it's easier for people who have had financial success to say, don't focus on financial success. But man, when you're when you're new, young family, new kids, it's hard not to get wrapped up in that, isn't it?
yeah, and like I said, it's different today. Trying to even come close to buying a home is very, very difficult. You need maybe two incomes to start getting in that range of things. That's a whole new discussion about things, So it's not easy. Yeah.
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 Is there advice you give your kids and grandkids around how to manage the pressure, the financial pressures versus the true markers of success?
Yeah, I think their biggest challenge, I think they'd be fine with what they have until they start looking at their associates, people on TV and all that, and start comparing themselves. There's always someone with more money. And if you start saying, well, I could be more like them, and money is really important, then they got a problem. So they need to learn how to be content with what what they have.
Hmm.
You need to learn how to just uh, save and only buy the things that you really need, quit wasting money. Reminds me of, was it President Benson? He and his wife deferred their wedding until they could afford buying a home with cash or something like that.
Huh.
You gotta have the old values in you, savings, thrift, all of that.
Yeah. Are those native for you? Like, is that something that came easy for you in your life, this concept of saving and spending less than you have and being content with what you have versus comparing yourself to others? Or is that something you had to learn?
Well, good old mom and dad taught us that. I'm a baby that was born right after World War II. And so mom and dad were in the thrift business. We did stuff only if we could afford it. And we had a wonderful family, but we didn't have extravagant things and all that.
Mm,
My dad never gave me a car and those kind of things. And so I think the example right from the start was not just mom and dad, but good neighbors and good board members. And I was a Boy Scout. And we were thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent, you know. So yeah, it started right from the start, and it's always felt comfortable. And that's how Ollie and I try to be too.
yeah. Is it more difficult now? Do
Oh,
you sense that?
oh yeah, oh yeah. I am surprised. I'm not sure quite the answer is, but I'm surprised at how much depression there is. Okay? Even among, well, not even, yeah, even among good members of the church and good missionaries, they are just plagued by doubt and depression, difficulty. And I know it's clinical in many cases. It's not just
Hmm.
shape up and, you know, deal with it kind of thing. It's different than when I was getting friends I had when I was growing up. We weren't depressed,
Yeah.
liked each other, and none of us came home from school and sat in our room and sulked or hid in a corner. Things are different now.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fascinating for me. I started my mission in the Philippines, which is a tough mission. I mean, third world country and so jarringly different. And my son served his mission in Hawaii, which, a lot of people think, gosh, that's got to be the cushiest mission of all time. And even he says, as far as missions go, it was pretty remarkable. But he asked me, he said, how many people in your mission went home for mental health um, challenges? And I said, in my 2 years of my mission, I couldn't think of a single one. And he said, gosh, it seemed like almost every month there was an elder that he knew that was going home because of these mental health challenges that they were facing. And I think, gosh, I don't know if we either had them and buried them because it wasn't something that we talked about, or if it has just become so much more of a debilitating issue in today's society. And you've been a mission president. I'm sure you saw it up close and personal.
Yeah, we had illnesses in the mission, not a lot of depression. We were lucky in that they were able to work hard. Sometimes hard work just trumps all the other stuff. If you can keep missionaries busy, if they truly have wonderful people to teach and some baptisms every now and then and all that, it does wonders for them. It's the missionaries that can't quite have success that concern me.
Yeah.
But
Um,
that's the nature of missionary work. There are a lot of them who aren't going to have great success. President Faust, I think if I remember right, he had this wonderful talk about the whole time he served in Brazil as a young man. He had one baptism. That's President Faust.
in Brazil.
In Brazil. Yeah, in Brazil.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
Yeah. And it's always interesting where because I grew up with President Hinckley as kind of the main prophet of my youth. And famous for his story of going to England and telling his dad, I'm wasting my time and your money. And his dad responding and says, forget yourself and go to work. And to your point, how many problems does that solve? A forget yourself and go to work mentality. And I know there are clinical and areas where that's not the Band-Aid that solves everything. But I think it's the mentality that can help with a lot of things. And in the success and in the path that you've followed to finding a level of contentment in your life, is there a secret to that, to looking around and saying, I'm content with what I have? My wife brought that up the other day. She said she was content. And I said, that's kind of an interesting word, because that's not a word I would I'm 46. Content is not a word I would use to describe myself very often. So I'm fascinated by people who say, yeah, I'm just content.
Yeah.
And I wonder, is there a secret to it?
I don't know. It's the old saying about happy wife, happy life. So it's nice to have a wife who's content. That's a great blessing.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, I think it comes because of living the gospel, and I think there's a lot of luck involved too. I know people who have physical ailments and diseases and all that they didn't ask for and they didn't deserve, but that's what their life is. A man in our ward who lives with pain every minute of the day, has been that way for years. And I thought, I'm so grateful for his faith that he handled that. Yeah. But contentment, yeah, that's really good. You're starting to sound like you ought to go to Hong Kong and be a Buddhist or something, They're all about contentment.
Yeah.
But they do it by escaping the world, by reducing their desires. Desire brings unhappiness, brings problems. So what you want to do is reduce and eliminate your desires, and then you reach contentment.
That's a very Buddhist philosophy, right? Is this idea of reducing, or that unmet desires are the sort of the heart of lack of contentment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not just Buddhist, it's a good old Asian trait.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
the older generation. I'm not so sure the younger Asians feel the same way.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any particular practice you do to keep your mind focused on sort of what you have versus what you don't have?
Not particularly. I like to exercise, okay, even though I don't run marathons and all that anymore. I have found that if I can do that regularly, it's really good for me.
Mm.
It helps my body tremendously, and I think it's really therapeutic for how I feel. So I think one of the things for many people who are depressed is, why don't you just get out of the house, get a bicycle or something, go do something physical.
Yeah, there's the Netherlands. There's the Netherlands talking. Get yourself a bicycle.
You gotta get the bicycle going.
If you don't know, everyone in the Netherlands has like 4 bicycles, right? They have like their nice bike. Then they have their bike that they will take downtown because if they leave it, it might get stolen. I mean,
And
that was one. I had an opportunity to visit Amsterdam. One of the most shocking things was walking out and just seeing racks of bicycles everywhere.
And when it gets cold, they still ride their bikes, and then they get their ice skates out. That's good exercise too. When I was a kid, I had these little wooden ice skates that you tie onto your shoe. So you wore your regular shoe and put the skate on, and when the canals froze, you go skate. It keeps you happy doing stuff.
I mean, pulling it back to the gospel, I mean, there is a connection between our body, our soul is our body and spirit. There, recently we studied section 89 of the Doctrine and Covenants. I mean, God does care about our physical bodies, and there does seem to be a connection between mental and physical health, or physical and emotional and spiritual health. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's more to that than maybe we realize, but I think there's a good connection here. I don't want to overemphasize it. That's not going to solve everybody's problem. But and especially if you play video games all day and you're indoors all day and you isolated yourself from friends and all that, just get out. Go out and, join a running club or something. Get some friends.
Get some dance lessons.
Dance lessons. Yeah.
Well, but you did say you have your friend that you go to lunch with once a month. I mean, find somebody that you can go to lunch with, find somebody that you can interact with in one way or another. Lots of positive ways.
Yeah, I feel sorry for people who don't have friends. I think it's a problem.
Yeah.
I think there's some people I know who, if you said, well, tell me who your friends are, name your friends, they'd have a hard time coming up with more than one or two people.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're a lot happier friends.
Yeah. And it seems like you proactively do it, right? I mean, you intentionally find activities and people that you can go to lunch with and build that proactively.
I remember counseling someone, as a bishop, that they said, this isn't a very friendly ward. And I thought, that's interesting, because just a few days before that, someone said, this is one of the friendliest wards I've ever been in. So it's kind of maybe up to you to be friendly. I didn't make a point of it, but it's kind of like saying, well, did you try to be a friend to someone? You're not the only one that sits alone in the chapel. Why don't you go sit next to someone else? And you might find out that it's a friendly ward. And you don't need a lot of friends. If you just have one or two good friends, then things are really good. It's like all you need is one good girlfriend. You don't need 10 good.
Good, solid advice. Solid advice, Lee. Only need one. As we wrap up, the podcast is called Excited About the Gospel. So I like to ask people, what gets you excited about the gospel?
I like the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and what it teaches because it's intellectually fascinating. Okay. When you get into, we're studying the Doctrine and Covenants this year. It's a fascinating view of how things took place and what life's all about. Just go read section 93 sometime. You'll think, wow, aren't we lucky to know what that section teaches us? And so I've always liked the scholarship side of the church. I'm not a great scholar, but I've always loved to learn things about the church. Yeah. And so the sacrament book was fun that way. It forced me to, gave me an opportunity to really study things and delve into
Yeah.
So I like that part of it. And I loved growing up. I was a happy boy, good Boy Scout, loved being in the church. I've always loved it since then.
Yeah. That was, as we talked before the podcast, it was interesting. You mentioned you just write books on stuff you like: golfing, going on cruises, Hong Kong, the sacrament. You have a new book coming out on cars, correct?
Well, yeah.
I don't want to give away too much, but it's just fascinating. You just find something you like, write a book about it.
So, Jason, I got to ask you, I can't remember if I did before or not, but what was your very first car?
Yeah. My first car was a hand-me-down. I mean, it's interesting because the way things have evolved. I mean, you mentioned your parents never gave you a car, and my dad, he had this old Ford Ranger truck, and I think he was hanging on to it until I turned 16, and then he got a new truck, so he handed me stick shift Ford Ranger truck. I love that truck. I mean, it was a piece of junk. I blew out the transmission on it and had to have it replaced, but man, I thought it was the coolest thing ever, driving that little truck around. And I used to get so mad though, because I had the bed, and my friends thought it was kind of funny, and it kind of became a habit for many of my friends. I'd come out after school, and kids would just throw all their garbage in the back of my truck, and they thought that was funny to just throw garbage in the back of the truck. And I'd get so mad because I just have pop bottles and sandwich wrappers and stuff thrown in the back of my truck. I get so mad.
Well, we love that first vehicle, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, the book has a chapter on that where we talk about the first vehicles of famous people, and for instance, Taylor Swift's first of her very own was not a car; it was a truck. She had a pink truck. So yeah,
Yeah. Mine was brown, not pink. Hers probably wasn't a hand-me-down stick shift Ford Ranger either, but
yeah. So I've always liked cars. I've never restored a car or anything, but I've always loved cars. I think they're interesting. And again, it's a very broad, wonderful topic to write books.
yeah.
There's so many stories. Yeah.
Well, there's something to be said about that, Lee, that you could teach us about finding purpose. Just find something you like, spend some time doing it. I mean, you mentioned not being good at golf. You're probably better than you let on. That's what I found about most good golfers is they're better than they let on. But, just find something you like and spend some time doing it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it can be a really goofy hobby or something, like rocks or something. But if you really like it,
Yeah. Talking with Lee Van Dam, I would recommend, I'll put a link for the Sacrament, History of the Sacrament book. Very good. You can go check it out on Amazon, and we'll be looking forward to upcoming books. But Lee, thank you so much. It's been great spending some time with you.
Jason, thank you. This has been a really fun hour. Thank you.